Good evening, everyone. I am Anushka Gupta, Part 3 CSE, and I will be your host for this session. Today, we have with us Shubham Avasti, sir. He has completed his graduation in industrial chemistry in the year 2021. He did his internship in Goldman Sachs and is currently placed in Google. Next, we have Sumit Kumar, sir. He did his graduation from Department of Metallurgy in the year 2021 and did his internship in Acupace Technologies. He is currently placed in Zebia. We also have with us Sumit Rai sir, who did his graduation from Department of Metallurgy and he has interned in IoT and he is currently placed in Bijli. Welcome to the session, sir. Uh, Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, you are audible. Thank you.
Sir, this session will be divided into four parts. In part one, we will be having preparation related questions. In part two, we'll be having resume related questions. Part three will be about coding tests and interviews.
Mhm.
And in part four, we will be taking questions from the audience. So my first question from Shubham sir is that what should be the primary area of focus for the students who will be appearing for their placements this year? Like should they focus more on OOPS or data structures or CP? What should be their primary area of focus?
Yeah, so the primary area of focus for all SD related roles is competitive programming, that's algorithms and data structures. So, if you want to crack any company, any SD role, you have to be good at algorithms and data structures, and the more good you are, the better you are at algorithms and data structures, you will have chances at appearing and clearing interviews at the top companies as well. Now, there are some other areas you need to learn about as well, as you said, object-oriented programming, parts of operating systems, databases, networking, etc. Now, I believe these things are very important to become a software engineer, but for interview purposes, for test purposes, the most important thing is algorithms and data structures. Next, you should give some a very a small percentage of your time to operating systems as well, then databases, and then finally networking. But I will still say, if you're not very good at algorithms and data structures, focus most of your time in preparing for algorithms and data structures. And when you get well at it, then you can start working on operating systems, databases, networking, etc. And don't spend a lot of your time there. Object-oriented programming is very important as well. There you can spend, let's say, 7 8 days if you want to. If you're not very good at object-oriented programming, and that would be enough to learn what is required in the interviews.
And Sumit sir, would you like to add some more points on this and share some resources from where we can study?
Yeah, so as Shubham said that coding covers most of the part for SC preparation. Yeah, actually there are different platforms. The platform as such doesn't matter from which we are practicing problems, but for placements, I would suggest to go through LeetCode, as most of the questions that come in online rounds are somewhat similar to that, and they cover data science algorithm very well. Also, there's a site called CP Algorithms, so you should look at that. They cover the concept first, and then they also have practice problems at the bottom, and those problems are from Code Forces, Code Shafts, Hodge, Hacker Earth. Yeah, so you can be flexible with the platforms, but just keep practicing problems. And yeah, OOPS covers a lot of part for interview as well after the coding, and then you can continue with the fundamentals of CSE subjects like the OS, networking, DBMS.
Sir, first I would like to confirm whether I have pronounced your name right or not. Is it Sumit or Sumit?
Yeah, it's Sumit.
Okay. Sorry, sir. And then Sumit, sir, would you like to comment more on this question? Sir, I think you're not audible. Uh, okay, sir. Then moving on, the second question to Sumit, sir. So, can you tell us about what all are the computer science subjects which have to be studied for the placement season?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Now you are audible.
Yeah, what was the question? I didn't hear it.
So the question was that what should be the primary area of focus for the students who will be appearing for their placements this year?
Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
I will join back in 2 minutes. I don't know. I'm not getting your voice.
Okay, sir. So, Sumit, sir, can you please tell us about the computer science subjects which one has to study for placements?
Yeah, so it starts with the operating system. I don't exactly remember the topics, but yeah, for intermediate level, like all the students here are from SD only, right?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, you should be knowing about the deadlock algorithms and the CPU scheduling algorithms and OS, and then you can cover the networking part, like all the different networking OS networking layers, and uh, DBMS also covers a good part. So start with OS, then cover networking, and you should also know the DBMS asset properties and all transaction and all those things. Uh, and on the skill level, if you are talking about the language, then you should know OOPS in any of the primary language that you use. Yeah, that's all. That's all for the CS subjects.
Uh, and Shubham, sir, would you like to add something to this list of
Uh,
computer science subjects?
I think this list is fine enough, and you can easily find out the topics you need to study if you go through the previous interview problems, previous interview experiences, etc. So that's not really an issue. You just need to work on these areas. And as I said, I believe one should focus most of their efforts in algorithms and data structures if they are not good at it, and then whatever time remains, or whenever you are feeling bored after solving many competitive programming problems, just read through the other core CS topics as well, and that way you will get prepared for your interviews very well overall.
And sir, can you please tell us about the importance of advanced data structures for placements, how important they are, and which all advanced data structures one should practice?
Um, I'm not really sure what we mean by advanced data structures, but things like segment trees, Fenwick trees, etc. Everyone should know these things, and everyone should be very comfortable in writing segment tree, Fenwick tree, etc. Related code. Then there are algorithms for there are graph algorithms like bridges, and articulation points, things like what is it called, topological sort. So topological sort, etc. These are some easy algorithms that everyone should know about. But things like articulation points, bridges, if you don't know, no problem. most of the companies will not ask it. I will be very surprised if a company really asks you to code um, this algorithm. So yeah, when you go through the algorithms on any site, if you're preparing from Geeks for Geeks or you're preparing for CP algorithms, you will find out which algorithms are not that difficult to learn and which are. And then when you go through the interview experiences, you will find out which algorithms you should study and which ones you should not study. I would say don't go into a lot of detail of the advanced graph algorithms, etc. Uh, just like I mentioned, articulation points, bridges, etc. You will find out the exact algorithms yourself if you go through the interview experiences. Well,
Okay, sir. And Sumit, sir, would you like to add something on this?
Yeah, so as you said, that covers the most part, but like you can also do try. Uh, uh, so yeah, insert deletion and all those questions can be asked, and some algorithms like the LFU, LRU, the least recently used, least frequently used, those questions, the page scheduling questions. So yeah, they can be asked in interviews, and segmentary graph and digit DP questions can come a lot, and uh, yeah, you can go through the theory. Like if you have covered all these basic DS, basic algorithms, then these advanced, then maybe you can just go through a theory of the maybe red deck tree. Just the theory part is not necessary. Yeah, and as you said that these questions, these advanced data structure questions, a company rarely asks. So yeah, but you should know that page scheduling algorithms, LRU, LFU, and all those.
Okay, sir. And what are your views on the brute force application in the technical or online round?
Uh, so sometimes the question can be passed by using a brute force algorithm. If it passes, then yeah, you can go with it. But yeah, so while they're checking the online round answers and making out the shortlist, so your how many incorrect submissions you have made, that also counts. So if you already know the optimized solution, you can just write it and submit it. But if you don't know the question and a thought process is involved in that, so you can go through the brute force and then come to the optimized solution and then can submit it. But yeah, it's fine. Like if you don't know, then obviously you will be using the brute force to get half of the test case pass. So yeah.
Okay, sir. Sumit, sir, have you joined? Hello.
Yeah, I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible now. Sir,
One minute. Yeah, yeah.
sir, I was asking, like, what are your views on the brute force application in the technical or online round?
Uh, I think brute force can help you get shortlisted. If you don't apply, like for hard questions, all of them have not done. So brute force can let you pass some of the test cases. So don't underestimate brute force.
Okay. Uh, and Shubham, sir, would you like to add something to this?
yeah, as both Sumit and Sumit said, if you don't have anything else, if you've tried everything and you cannot pass a problem in the online test, just try to brute force through it. Otherwise, overall regarding the question, I would say if you are comfortable with a brute force solution and you think the time complexity is enough for the solution to pass, just write the brute force solution. Don't spend extra time trying to optimize it. In the technical interviews, though, try to come up with the best possible time complexity solution. So I suggest most people. I mostly suggest not starting with the brute force solution. If the first solution that comes into your mind is an optimized solution, start with the optimized solution in the online in the technical interview. Don't start with the brute force solution. And yeah, that's what I had to add.
Okay, sir. And in your opinion, what is the importance of time in making through the first round? Like, is the time issue platform dependent, or how important it is?
Um, yeah, you definitely you have to manage your time well, and it may be platform dependent sometimes because I've seen some platforms are kind of weird and they have some weird mechanics. So that can be an issue, but I would just suggest you to be very alert in your technical rounds, in your online rounds, and just make the best out of your time.
Okay, so I meant that higher time complexity answers, do they get shortlisted first? Is there something shortlisting criteria? Is it time complexity that I was asking?
Yeah, that can be the case sometimes. Sadly, I think that should not be the case, but that happens sometimes. So a lot of companies don't really understand how to judge people from online interviews. So when a lot of people solve a problem, they will just filter students on the basis of any weird criterias. So one of those weird criterias can be the runtime of your solution or the time complexity of your solution. I don't think that should be the case because if you have given a strict time limit and the solution passes that time limit, the company should not really care about the time complexity. If they really want to make sure that the student submits the best time complexity solution, the time limit must be strict. But yeah, that's not the case. So you have to keep this in mind. And if you have enough time, always go with the best time complexity solution.
Okay. And Sumit sir, would you like to add something to this?
Uh, yeah, actually, I think time complexity. If the first thing comes in your mind is the best time complexity solution, then go for that. Then only go for other solutions. I don't think companies shortlist like everyone solved the question. Then it is based on CPI. I think I was not shortlisted for many companies based on my CPI. So I think.
Okay, sir. Sumit sir, now I'll be asking you resume related questions. So first question is that what do you think the company is expecting out of a candidate's resume, and how did you structure your resume, and what tips would you like to share?
Yeah, so you cannot change what projects and what internship you have done. So yeah, so whatever you have done and whatever you are mentioning, just make sure that you have a proper knowledge on those fields, and whatever skill you are mentioning, just make sure that you are at least at intermediate level on those skills, and also should know oops in like all the syntaxes also in one of the primary languages that we mentioned. uh, and yeah, company is expecting you to have some SD related projects like the development project, or any of like some people are doing machine learning and deep learning, so those projects also can be mentioned.
Sir, is your company which you are placed in Pidgely, was it looking for something specific in your resume? Like some specific projects or some specific things, certificates you might have done?
No, actually no, because I had two rounds and both were online, both were coding rounds. so they didn't go through my resume. And yeah, so it depends on the company. Maybe yeah. So there was a company Razorpay. They were actually looking for someone who should know Python in the backend side. So they should have done something with Python. So yeah, it depends on the company. Yeah, so generally they are looking for some development project. So yeah, at least one development project or intern uh, you should mention. If you haven't done, then yeah, nothing can be done over that. But yeah, yeah.
Okay. And Sumit sir, was Zebia looking at some particular certificates or project in your resume? And how did
Yeah,
you structure your resume?
yeah. Actually, I wrote my software internship in a startup in which I have did a project on Angular actually. So they were asking me about Angular. What did you do? REST APIs. So basically, be prepared for what you have written in your resume. You
Okay.
should answer what you have done in your internship, what in your projects. That's the point. Actually, I remember I have wrote Python in my resume, and in my Razorpay interview, HR asked me about questions on Python, and I was not able to answer.
Okay, sir.
That I think that was the turning point for me get rejected in that one. So write only which you have at least intermediate knowledge.
Okay, sir. And Shubham sir, can you please tell us if Google was looking at some particular projects or certificates in your resume, and how did you structure your resume?
Yeah, I think Google does not look for any specific things. Mostly general things like you should be good at, like most companies look at resumes. They look at a candidate's resume to figure out if the candidate is good enough to work on the projects they work on. So they figure it out by seeing if the candidate has relevant knowledge of a few programming languages. Then they ask questions regarding that in the interviews, etc., to figure out if the knowledge, if that's correct. Moreover, they always focus on internships and your projects. So you should have one or two projects on development. Now, it depends what kind of projects you want to have. You can have a project on web development, application development, machine learning, anything. It does not matter a lot what field your project covers, but it matters more like how much difficult your project was, how much complicated it was, and what kind of problem it solves. So if the project is technically sound, it's a green signal to the recruiters. Then similarly, the focus on your internship projects as well. Um, Other than that, yeah, regarding how I structured my resume, so I structured my resume into just these categories: internships, very well structured points regarding my internship projects, very well structured points regarding my personal projects, and then a good section dedicated to my achievements. So that I think people should focus a lot on the achievement section, because you may not think you have enough achievements. Sometimes I think I did have enough achievements to structure it very well. But even if you think you don't have enough achievements, you can always put up any kind of work you have done in competitive programming, development competitions, etc., anywhere. And you can almost always structure it in a different manner so as to appease the recruiter. So also think about your recruiter's point of view. So sometimes you think your achievement is very small, but if you structure it correctly, if you state it correctly, the recruiter may believe it's very good. And you have to be honest in your resume as well. So yeah, I think That's how you should structure your resume.
And sir, what were some of the common mistakes your classmates did while making their resume? Uh,
Mhm.
if you have observed someone got rejected because of that particular mistake.
Yeah, I've observed many resumes actually. I proofread at least 30 resumes, I believe, till date. And one of the biggest problems I look at in resumes is spelling mistakes. People make a lot of spelling mistakes, and that should never be the case. You should not have even a single spelling mistake in your resume. Spelling mistakes and grammatical mistakes are one of the biggest issues I've seen in most resumes. Get someone to proofread your resume. Actually, first pass it through a grammar checker. So we have Grammarly subscription, IIT in IIT BHU, everyone can access Grammarly for free. So you should first pass your resume through Grammarly, figure out what mistakes there are in your resume regarding mistakes like spelling mistakes and grammatical mistakes, and then send it to a proofreader to ensure the way you have structured your statements is correct, and repeat the cycle for a few iterations, and you will have a good resume.
Okay. And Sumit sir, would you like to tell us about what mistakes you found in your classmates' resume?
Uh, First of all, I agree with Subham. I have also seen many resumes with spelling mistakes. Uh, Also, I have seen like most of my classmates have their write any projects which they know and they don't know completely about it. So basically, if someone wants to write that project, then he should prepare a Google Doc of questions what can be asked on this project and be prepared beforehand. So that is what I suggest to prepare Google Doc for each project which you are writing in your resume, and all the possible questions and answers, and this will help you in interview.
Okay. Sumit sir, would you like to add something on this?
Yeah. So yeah, Shubham said the correct thing, and Sumit followed with that. So I would like to also add that you should not write some flashy words just to show that you have done work on this technology and that technology, because it can have its negative effects as well. Yeah, just keep it simple, and yeah, write down the questions that you think from the interviewer's perspective that you think that the interviewer might ask, and prepare their answers as well. And yeah, I'm not telling you to memorize it, but yeah, read it 2 to 3 times so that you get a hang of it, and then uh, you're fluent enough to tell whatever they would ask. Yeah.
And so, what kind of projects had you included in your resume? Like, which field were they from? Web development or app development? The scale of the project, like
Yeah.
a
So
brief on the project.
yeah. So I had projects in machine learning and deep learning. Uh, on top of which I was doing some dev work, like deploying it as as a web application. So yeah, it can be a mixture of different things, like you are using a machine learning model and then doing something with the development, and also mm, as I did my internship in IoT, so that was a part of that. And yeah, I had a project in game development also. Uh, so yeah, you can mention that you used concepts of object-oriented programming in these type of projects, like the game development and uh, yeah, like these. Yeah, so that was all I had.
Okay. And Sumit sir, would you like to tell us about your projects?
Yeah, actually, I have written my internship, which was based on Angular, and one of the I have created a front end website which I wrote in my projects, and one OpenCV project I've written. That's
Okay.
one.
And Shubham sir,
Yeah. Um, Firstly, I would say if you have good internships, you don't need to worry a lot about your projects. Actually, your projects and your internships are taken into consideration, um, not differently. I mean, they're looked at by the recruiter together as a package, your projects and internships. So if your internship projects are very well, you can have not that well projects as well. Um so I had done three internships. So I had a few projects from the internships. So one of the projects was a Django website development project, which I worked on with a college startup in my second year. Then after my third year, I interned at MyKarma, and I did some work on microservices and migration of a code base to the microservice architecture. And then finally, I had an internship at Goldman Sachs, where I worked on um, Java architecture to manage sending messages through a Goldman Sachs proprietary system. So I think these projects were quite good, and I could explain them very well. So my personal projects were not actually very impressive, but yeah, I added just two of my personal projects. One of the projects was something I worked on in my first year at college. So it was really not very technical, but yeah, it had something to impress the recruiter. That project ranked very well in an online competition. So it ranked seventh in the world and second in India. So that's how it um, might be impressive to the recruiter, but actually it was not very technically sound. And the other project which I mentioned was a machine learning project, and a machine learning C++ project where I implemented some machine learning models using C++ and tested their runtimes parallelly as well as in serial. So this was part of a CSE project, a CSE course. This was a CSE course project for an optional CSE subject that I took. So yeah, I would say the project which I worked on in my first year was not very good, but the other projects were quite good.
And so, can you share with us your online coding interview and your coding test experience? Like how
Mhm.
was the entire process?
Yeah, the entire process for Google or in general, like,
So you can tell us about in general also and specific to Google also.
okay, so in general, I'm not sure what to say about in general. In general, there's an online interview. Just make sure you're not very nervous. Make sure you're communicating well, and yeah, just make sure you're not nervous and answer questions as well as you can. Don't panic through the interview. Uh, don't really, you should never think that it's uh, the only thing, it's the thing you really have to get. And if you don't get selected in a company, that's very bad. Yeah, opportunities will come and go. That's not a big issue. So don't panic a lot. Regarding my interviews with Google, so it started with me applying to Google with a referral. And then after a few months, they sent an online test link, appeared in the online test, did very well in the online test, solved both the problems they asked, then had a phone interview. Um, yeah, uh, in the phone interview, a TSU question was asked. The question was not very difficult, but um, I managed to impress the recruiter by adding some specific things regarding C++, which even he was not aware of. So this is a kind of thing which happens when you are very experienced in a language. So not something which you really need to worry about if you have just started, if you're not that good in a language. Then had my on-site interviews. So this time all the on-site interviews were held virtually as well because of COVID-19. So there were five on-site interviews, four interviews on competitive programming, algorithms and data structures, and the fifth one on the Linux leadership, which is mostly a behavioral plus leadership kind of round. So this time though, I managed to become nervous, and that's not something I am very proud of. But yeah, in some of my on-site interviews, I was nervous. I did solve all the questions completely, except one of the interviews where the question was very difficult, and I solved it almost completely, but not completely. But most of the other in most of the other interviews, I was able to solve the questions completely. But sometimes my communication skills lagged. Sometimes I got nervous. That should not be the case. I think it was the case because this was the first time I was appearing for a virtual interview. And when you are not face to face with your interviewer, you can feel nervous. You cannot uh, you cannot look at the interviewer's face and find out what expression the interviewer is making. So you sometimes you're not very sure if the interviewer is going along with your explanation or not, whether you are making any mistakes if the question is difficult. And yeah, there were some difficult questions in Google's interviews as well. Sometimes the interviewer will not uh, show up their face, they will not turn on their camera. So that's an issue. All of you should think about it, and you should be well alerted about this. This can happen in your interviews, as many of your interviews may happen virtually this time as well. So yeah, please don't become nervous in your interviews if something like this happens.
Okay. And Sumit sir, can you please share with us your experience of the coding rounds and interviews?
Yeah, coding rounds are actually completely based on competitive programming. You must have prepared. I must have prepared significantly for the coding rounds. Uh, I would suggest code forces for getting up your speed, and you can opt for CP algorithms and interview bid for DSA part. And like most of the companies ask uh, all type of question, easy, medium, and hard. And if you do medium up to mediums and partially hard, then you would get shortlisted easily. I think I did 2.5 questions for most of the companies, and I was shortlisted. And for the interview, for the interview rounds, I would say don't get panic, don't get nervous. I got nervous for the Alfonso interview. Uh, then interviewer told me, "Don't panic, don't get nervous, don't let this happen." And even if the interviewers are sometimes interviewers are rude, then don't panic. Be confident with your answers. It will work fine.
Okay. And Sumit sir, can you please share with us your experience?
Yeah. So yeah, coding round covers the data structure algorithms part very well, and yeah. So similar type of questions can be asked, like there are questions on lead code. So yeah, one should, if one is preparing for a placement, then yeah, they should go through lead code once. And yeah, yeah, if the questions asked were quite on the side on the quite on the easy side, then yeah, even if you do all the questions, then yeah, it may be possible that you will be not getting the shortlist. uh, because then many factors come, like the branch, the CPI, and before that, in at how much less time you were able to complete the question, and how many wrong submissions you made. So all these factors come into account. uh, and yeah, after that, yeah, so I also had to go through around 5 to 6 companies interview before getting placed. And also make sure that this uh, earphone equipment you're having is working fine. As in my sponsor interview, I had this issue. My interview lasted around 1.5 hour, and around for the starting 45 minutes, I had this issue with my earphones, so I was not able to properly hear the question. So that wasted most of the time, and so yeah, I was not able to get past that round as well. And yeah, also make sure uh, you go through the HR on questions as well and form your own answers. If you are from a non-surgical, then yeah, it matters. Like these questions, like you are from different branch, you want to come there. So what motivated you, and all those. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. And so, how much do the code forces rating and code chef rating affect the shortlist? How important they are?
Yeah, so I think the platform doesn't matter that much. You can be flexible with the platform. Just keep solving problems. Yeah, yeah. You usually get started with code forces. In the second year, you must have started with code forces. You can go through it. If it suits you well, then yeah, continue on it. But you can switch platform if you want. Like I was doing code forces, but when I started my placement preparation, then completely switched to then I completely switched to mostly lead code, hacker earth, and Spoj, because more algorithmic questions are there on the lead code, and uh, more uh, intuitive questions are there on the code forces. So yeah, in my experience, I saw this. So yeah, and the placement they will be asking you more data structures and algorithmic questions. So for getting the hang of that, one must go through lead code. Yeah.
And Sumit sir, what is your opinion about the same?
I think ratings sometimes matters for big companies, and for all companies. For other companies, it will not matter. More, more people like code forces have constructive problems every time, and it not suit everyone. And I think code forces and codeshape is basically for increasing your thinking capability. How far can you think for questions? So that is what it for. And for DSA part, interview bit and lead code is enough. If you want to increase your speed and cover your DSA also, then you can go for lead code on test. And if you want to be super fast, then you can do code courses.
And Shubham sir, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, I think ratings are not a very good indicator of how good you are at algorithms and data structures, at least nowadays. So, in specific, if you look at CodeChef ratings, their credibility has declined a lot recently because people have been using unfair means on CodeChef in their various monthly contests, and even in in most many of their monthly contests, and a lot more in their long contests. So the credibility of CodeChef ratings has declined a lot, and similarly on code forces as well, people are using unfair means, but I believe Codeforce's ratings, the credibility of Codeforce's ratings has declined more because of the kind of problems that are asked on Codeforces nowadays. This is my personal opinion. So I think a lot of problems which are asked on Codeforces nowadays are very puzzle or mind teaser like problems. At least the first few problems which are asked in many of the contests, like ABC level problems. Sometimes B level or C level problem will be a very mind teaser like problem, which would have just the solution of the problem would be just a 10-line code, but you will have to really think about the solution, and you will have to observe the solution. And sometimes it does not translate very well into the amount of experience a person has. So even if a person has a lot of experience, they may not be able to solve these mind teaser kind of problems in small amount of time, and they may lose their rating in B or C level problems when they can easily solve D and E level problems. This happened with me as well. And yeah, I would say just focus on improving how good you are at algorithms and data structures. Don't focus a lot on your ratings. Companies also don't focus a lot on ratings, as far as I believe. So a lot of recruiters are not very concerned with the ratings because they are not very aware of the various competitive programming platforms there are, and the ones who are aware of uh, are mostly recruiters of some top level companies, and they also know um, the various ins and outs of the ratings. So they understand that a rating does not completely um, indicate how good a person is. You have to do well in your interviews. That's what will guarantee your selection in a company the most. Yeah.
So, how would you answer this common question that why not core fields and why are you coming to SDE only? This common interview question which is asked to the non-core branches.
Yeah, I was asked these questions a lot of times, and I believe everyone from non-core backgrounds will be asked these questions a lot of times in their interviews. Maybe the top few companies will not ask these questions, but most of the other companies will. Uh, Now there's you can give a diplomatic answer, and you can be very straightforward with your answer, very honest with your answer as well. So there are two routes. Either you can diplomatically answer something like I've been very interested in computer science and stuff, and I've been working to improve my knowledge in computer science since the very beginning, etc. On those lines, or you could just simply answer honestly that you felt recruitment or the opportunities in your branch were not good, and on the at the same time you were also interested in computer science, so you believed computer science would be a much better career path for you. So that's the path I went with. I didn't face any issues most of the times because my story was very well structured. I didn't see a lot of opportunities in my branch. I was not interested in my branch really, but I was very much interested in computer science. And yeah, I have enough data points to show how I was interested in computer science. I have been working from my first year itself, and I have been doing very well at computer science. So, if you put your story in this way, I believe most of the interviewers will get impressed. They will not just buy your story; they will actually get very impressed.
And Sumit sir, how would you answer this question?
Yeah, basically I
of
answered like
by choosing?
yeah. Basically
Yes,
I
sir.
answered I answered similar to Subham Awasthi, like we don't have many good and opportunities in metallurgy. So and also I have interest in computer science subjects. So that is why I declined. Uh, I moved to the computer science background there.
And Sumit sir, would you like to share your answer with us for the same question?
Yeah, so actually I went the diplomatic route. Yeah, as to uh, like I used to give such answer that when I got this CS subject in my second sem, that is when I knew what I have to do after 4 years. So these type of questions can also help, but yeah, you should have some proof, uh, like like the ratings or like the projects that you've done, and also yeah, as you are getting the shortlist, so yeah, that is also a proof. So you should be able to back it up, whatever you answer. Uh, and yeah, it doesn't matter much. It is not that the circuital and non-circuital uh, the circuital branch doesn't matter. It is not that, but if you are good enough, if you are at par with the students from circuital branches, if you are evenly good at the CS fundamentals and the coding parts, so yeah, you have a similar chance to them as well.
Okay, sir. So this one is a audience question which was asked through a Google form, that how to fill willingness wisely so that there is a balance between backup companies which are like 12 lakh plus per annum and decent companies which are 20 lakh plus per annum.
Yeah, as I remember last year for non-circuital, yeah, we also used to fill the willingness for SD companies which were giving more than 12 lakhs. But I was only able to fill around 35 willingness for that, and my willingness were vacant. So yeah, I chose to fill for DS profile as well. So maybe I think right now the market is more open. There is extensive hiring going on. So yeah, so I think more companies would be coming on. So yeah, yeah, you can see the JD, you can look at what the company does, and yeah, according to your preference. Like if you're really looking at the CTC, then yeah, uh, you can go for it. And also if you think that you also like to give the secondary profile a chance, like I did for DS. So yeah, you can do that as well.
Okay. And Sumit sir, what's your opinion about the same?
Yeah, last year I think there was less companies. I almost filled 12 lakhs plus SD profile companies, almost all companies. Then I was able to fill 45 companies, uh, and limit was 55. So, but I think this year number of companies will increase. So you can look if you are looking for a good compensation. So you should prefer uh, good companies with good compensation, and you should at least keep 10 companies for backup. I think personally, 10 to 12 lakhs, 10 to 15, or as you think, 10 companies should be backup, in which you think, yeah, I will make it through this company. That is my opinion.
And Shubham sir, would you like to add something to this?
Actually, no, not really. For this question, I don't have a very good opinion about this question since I did not participate in the placement process. I applied off campus to Google and I got PPO at Goldman Sachs after my internship. So I don't have much to say about this.
Okay. And so, what kind of questions are asked about the internships in
Mhm.
your placement interview?
In my Google interviews, no question was asked regarding my previous internships or projects. So Google has a very fixed um, set of way, a fixed way for the interviews, in which the interviews are conducted. So none of these questions were asked. But otherwise, in other interviews, I've seen they asked all the very basic questions regarding the kind of framework you work with, the kind of programming language you work with, and what actually you worked on. So they are very interested. A lot of the recruiters are very interested in knowing what actually you worked on, what did you finally deliver, and if you worked in a team, how did you, what did you deliver individually? And yeah, you should know everything regarding that. So if you worked on a microservice, say, you should know things like how JSON works, how different HTTP verbs work, how API calls are made, etc. So yeah, all the basic stuff is asked regarding your projects. So a lot of these questions are very project specific.
And Sumit sir, what kind of internship questions were asked to you during your interview?
Yeah, actually, he asked me about tell me about your project, and you will tell a few paragraphs about your project, and he will start asking from that paragraph what your key terms. Actually, he will figure out key terms like I mentioned Angular and TypeScript. He started with what is the difference between TypeScript and JavaScript, and so you must know about each and every point related to your internship and what you have done in this internship. So that is why I told be prepared with a Google Doc with all possible questions and answers. This will help you.
Okay, sir. And Sumit sir, what kind of questions were asked to you about the internships?
Yeah. So yeah, I did my internship in IoT. So it was mainly like a protocol server implementation. So it covered most of the networking part. So yeah, I went through the networking fundamentals on the theory side as well. Also, I worked on the project. So yeah, I had that knowledge as well. So most of the questions were from the networking fundamentals only, and also some common questions can be asked like what were the problems you faced and how were you able to resolve it during your internship period, and what kind of responsibility were you given, and um, yeah, so yeah, and yeah, you also write exposure at the bottom of your internship, so you should know, you should have a decent level of knowledge on those skills as well. Yeah, and also prepare, as Sumit said, prepare Google Doc, and from an interviewer's perspective, think what questions can they ask, prepare answers alongside, and yeah, read it multiple times. Yeah.
Okay, sir. And if there is a choice between an MNC or a startup, so which one would you recommend to go for?
Yeah, so at a startup, there is a very good opportunity to learn from scratch, learn new things. Um, but yeah, so if you are looking for a stable life, like you want a stable income, and you already have some experience, uh, yeah, you can go for the MNCs. But if you are really looking to learn something, and if they are giving you a good pay better than the MNC, then yeah, startups, yeah, then you can go for opt startup as well. Yeah, because uh, yeah, you'll be building along with them from scratch. So there's a very nice, yeah. So for first couple of years, you can uh, you can think about this like I'll be working for first work at the startup, building my skills, learning new tech, and then I can switch to MNC. Yeah, so this can also be a thought process. Otherwise, you can opt for MNC.
And Sumit sir, what is your opinion about the same?
Yeah, as Sumit told, if you are looking for you want to work for a project from scratch, then you can opt for a startup. But if you are looking for a stable job with decent pay, then you should join MNC. That is what I think.
Okay. And Shubham sir, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, actually, the difference between startups and established companies, if you search it on the internet, is very straightforward, but that's not really the case most of the times. I myself have worked with startups and established companies, startups as well as established companies. So in my second year at college, I worked with a college startup, which was very horrible, which is something that you may see in many of the very emerging startups, which you may want to join, but you should not. So there's a lot of startups which really don't know what they're doing. So a lot of startups may have people who are better at managing the product, who are good at product management, but they are not sound. They don't have sound skills regarding software development. And in the end, you have to build a software. You have to build a program. If they're not using the right tools, for example, if they are not using Git to manage their projects, you will face a lot of issues. And yeah, your work will be just really bad, and you will be working, you will mostly keep working on cleanup of things, cleanup of files, etc., a lot of times, because there's no centralized system to ensure that changes are very well accumulated in the source code. So yeah, that's one thing you really need to look at. And I've also worked with MyKarma, which has been a startup but is now quite like an established company, but they work like a startup still. So there I found all these issues were not there in this in MyKarma, but still there were some issues, like the way they manage security of the systems may not be very well, and things like how polished their systems are. So their systems may not be very well polished, but they had a lot of very innovative systems in place. So there are positives and negatives, both things regarding startups and companies and established companies. Goldman Sachs is a very established company, but even then it has some issues. But overall, the kind of systems that are in place at Goldman Sachs are like the best, the standard things that should be in place. But still, now at Goldman Sachs, there are other issues. Like Goldman Sachs is very restrictive. You may not be able to work on any innovative solutions if you really want to. You may need to get a lot of permissions to access a single resource at Goldman Sachs. So these are some disadvantages of working at Goldman Sachs. One of the very important advantages of working at an established company is that uh, you will learn what the best standards are in the industry, which you will most probably not learn in most of the startups. At some startups, like if you talk about Uber and uh, startups like these, then you will definitely learn about the industry standards very well, but not at many other startups which are not at that great level. Then yeah, then finally at Google, again I see some of these positives and negatives. Um, Compared to Goldman Sachs, there's a lot of freedom here. compared to Goldman Sachs. You can work on much more innovative things. It's much less restrictive. So overall, the idea is that the difference between startup, the decision whether you should join a startup or should join an established company depends on the startup and the established company in question. So
Okay, sir.
it's very company specific.
So, and how would you recommend to prepare for the HR round? What are the points one should keep in mind?
Yeah, for the HR rounds, you should have a few stories in your mind. So things like how you work in a team environment, how you managed um, uh, issues working in a team environment where one of your teammates, for example, was not working very well, or maybe you were facing some issues with the deadline, you were facing some issues with the kind of project you were allotted. So things like that, you should have a few points already set up in your mind before going to an HR interview. And then yeah, please go through some common HR questions as well, and just think about how you will answer them in your interviews. And a very important point regarding any interviews, not just HR interviews, is to is that your demeanor should be up to the mark. So you should really not feel afraid. You should really not panic. And a lot of times, when you cannot answer a question, maybe it's a technical question and you don't know the answer of the question, or maybe it's a behavioral question and you might think you may not know the exact answer. So a lot of times a recruiter asks some hypothetical questions, and sometimes these hypothetical questions are very tricky. So you may not really know the answer to the questions. Yeah, sometimes these hypothetical scenarios are very, very hypothetical. So something like that does not happen a lot of times in real life. Then you may not have an answer. In such cases, if your demeanor is very calm, if you're very calm, you can just smile and you can just say you don't know the answer to it. You can try answering it as much as you can, but you can say, this is all I can answer, this is all I can think about. And you just say, I'm not sure if this um, really really answers your question. And the interviewer, a lot of times, will not focus on the way you were not able to answer the question, but they will actually get impressed with the way you handle the question, handle a question which you did not know. Now, if you're not calm, you will think that you messed up your question, you messed up your interviews, and then your stress level will rise, and you will make mistakes again and again in the in the other questions that recruiter asks.
Okay. And Sumit sir, what is your opinion regarding this?
Yeah, I think preparing for the common HR questions which are asked will help you clear the HR round, as there are some fixed stories and your history that can help you give answers to all the HR questions. You can prepare you can prepare a similar Google Doc for all the HR questions and your stories and your answer. What will you answer to that questions? And this will help you to confidently answer as you have rehearsed it for many times, I think.
And Sumit sir, would you like to add upon this?
Yeah, so before going to the HR round, one should go through the about us section on a company's site, because that plays an important role. As soon as you enter a HR round, they can ask you uh, what do we do? Do you know, and why are you interested in us? Why do you want to join us? So these questions should be prepared, and for that you should know the JD as well as what the company does, and also the HR can ask you some questions which are just meant to lower your confidence. Yeah, some shock value questions. So yeah, you should be prepared to handle that. Just be calm and uh, answer just like what how you were answering before. Confidence plays an important role. So yeah.
Okay, so now we will be taking questions from the audience. So if anybody has any doubt, then they can unmute their mic and ask the question. Does anybody have any questions?
I guess there are less, and we may not have some, but we will wait for 5 minutes. If someone has some question, then he or she can ask. Uh, sorry, sorry to our panelists. Today there are 3 to 4 tests on SD profile, so we have very less attendance. By the way, we are going to upload this on YouTube so that people can be helped from this.
Okay, no worries.
So yeah. So anyone has some question, then feel free to ask by unmuting yourself, or you can type on the chat box so that we can means ask. Uh, and also, uh, please feel that feedback from.
Hello. Uh, I had a question about the projects and the internship. So, like, if my projects and internship is like research oriented, is it okay, or is it absolutely essential to have a development project as well? Uh, so yeah.
I think it will be good to have at least one good development project. Um, so yeah, your research projects, if they are good, will definitely indicate that you may be a very viable candidate for the company. But will not be they will not be able to assess how good you are at software development. So at least one or two good software development projects I feel should be essential.
Yeah, I would also suggest to have at least one uh, self project. Now the time is less, so you can just go through a simple project. Yeah, you should know all the theory and all the thing that the project involves. But you can add a simple self project uh, on the development side to your project to your in resume.
Yeah, I think one HD project is compulsory for appearing in HD interview, because the interviewer will ask you about your project and you will tell him your research project. Then he will not get anything and he will keep listening for you, and it will not create anything. It will not be a matter of discussion.
I would like to add another point. If you don't have enough time, and if you don't have enough time, um, please don't be very creative with your project. It will take a lot of time. Instead, you can follow some tutorials, or you can follow an online course. There are a lot of online courses available on the internet, uh, which are well guided, and they lead you to build a project which is impressive to the recruiters. So you can try to follow this path if you don't have enough time, and just allocate about 2 days or 3 days at most for working on your project. Yeah, I see a lot of people who actually follow an online course do quite well, make quite well projects.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. I had a question. Should I mention a core internship that I've done in the resume?
Um, I would generally not recommend you to add a core internship in your project, because that really does not make a lot of sense. Um, if you have other projects, please put those other projects, even if they are not very well. If you have some other software development projects, but if you don't have other software development projects and you think your research project or your core project is good enough, shows how good you are technically, then yeah, you may add the project. But I would generally not recommend adding core projects.
We can have Sumit Bhaiya and Sumit Bhaiya's opinion also.
Yeah, I agree with Subham. There is no point to mention core project in a
Yeah. There's no point of having a core project in when you're appearing for SG profile. You can make multiple resumes, and when you're appearing for any of the core profiles, then yeah, go ahead with that. But for SG, it doesn't make any. Yeah.
you can even mention a small project in development rather than mentioning core project.
Yeah, if that core project had any development side to it or any machine learning also side to it, then yeah, you can add that.
Okay, with this we conclude this session. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out your time and helping us all, giving your precious advice. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having us, ACSG.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having
Thank
us.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Bhaiya, for joining us today and giving your precious advices.